Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 12th of October 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, just a shout out here to Cryptex, who are hosting me in a Twitter Spaces on Thursday, October 14th at 12 AM UTC. This is Friday morning for me, so fellow Aussies on the East Coast, this will be Friday morning. You can just basically go, I kind of see the link here, it'll be linked in the YouTube description, but I'm going to be just talking to them alongside Preston Van Loon, who's one of the ETH, I think it's just that's actually his wrong Twitter account there, but he's one of the ETH2 core developers, works for the ProtoLambda team, and Hunter here as well is going to be, who does community at Off-Chain Labs, who built Arbitrum, of course. So yeah, definitely come, listen in live on, I guess, like at this time, whatever time that is for you. I think for most people it's going to be the Thursday. Just for Australians, it's a Friday morning, so Thursday probably evening for the US, and I think Europe's going to be asleep during that, unfortunately. But I'm sure it'll be you'll be able to replay it later. But yeah, definitely go check that out. All right, so ProtoLambda from the Ethereum Foundation, he's a researcher at the Ethereum Foundation, put out an update on the merge interop testnet. Now, I mentioned that there was a testnet that was up and running. That basically was the one that was kind of like launched with all the clients kind of in sync with each other. Now, this update basically goes through that after launching that testnet, which was named Amphora, the team realized that they were putting a rough equivalent of 3 times the mainnet workload onto it due to some config quirks. So there's going to be a new testnet going live this week. So this isn't one of those kind of like long-lived testnets or anything like that. This was just like kept live because it worked so well. But they're going to be winding this one down, I assume, and then kind of like launching another testnet with the correct configs in place. So if you're interested in, I guess, kind of like connecting to this testnet, you just have to wait until later this week, I think, until this spins up, and then you'll be able to connect to it with your own kind of like hardware and software there. So yeah, just a bit of an update on the interoperability, on the merge front there. All right, so I think probably one of the biggest updates from the last 24 hours was Arbitrum announcing a major upgrade coming to their network called Arbitrum Nitro. Now, this, in terms of like how major it is probably on the same kind of like footing as the OVM 2.0 that Optimism's coming out with. That's going live, I think, in a couple days on testnet and going live on a mainnet a couple weeks after that, on October 27th or 28th. So the TLDR of what Arbitrum Nitro is basically the next iteration of Arbitrum. So next iteration of the software of the Arbitrum 1 network, and it's built on standard technologies like WASM and Geth, so it's more EVM compatible and an order of magnitude faster than Arbitrum's current tech, and adds another 0. When it's ready, they'll be deploying it as a seamless upgrade to Arbitrum 1. Now, what I found very interesting was that it's more EVM compatible. This is exactly what Optimism is doing with their upgrade. They're basically having EVM equivalents. So it seems to be a bit of a fight here. Not a fight, but like a bit of competition here, being like, let's see who can get to, the most EVM compatible, EVM equivalent as possible. So Arbitrum is definitely moving in that direction there, which is really cool to see. Another thing that caught my eye here was them, I think they said down here, in terms of like speed improvements, where is it? I think it was up here somewhere. Yeah, so they're estimating a 20 to 50x increase in layer 2 execution speed, which, I mean, if anyone has if you guys have used Arbitrum, you'll know how fast it already is. Like, it's pretty much within a second your transaction gets confirmed on there. So they're claiming to be able to do it even quicker in terms of execution, which is amazing, of course. And they also said that they expect a sizable decrease in costs. Now, I wrote today's Daily Gwei newsletter about this, but basically, what I'm seeing some people assume is that the current kind of iterations of Arbitrum 1 and the optimistic Ethereum network are like the final form. They're like Gen 1, essentially, of what these Layer 2s are going to be. There's going to be many, many iterations coming out. There's going to be many upgrades coming over time. These upgrades are going to primarily be focused on efficiency, I believe, especially around gas costs, right? Bringing those costs down as much as possible. But Arbitrum and Optimism, they wanted to get their networks live out there just in whatever way they could in a mainnet capacity, because they wanted to ensure that people could start using it, start building on it, and then they can just improve it over time. Perfect is the enemy of good. Literally waiting until you think that what you've built is like ready for prime time and is like perfect and ready for kind of like to scale to the world and doesn't need to be upgraded anymore is not the way to go about it when it comes to software development. It's an iterative process, and there are projects out there, especially in the layer 1 space, that have done this. I mean, I think Cardano is the perfect example here, where they worked on smart contracts for like 5 years. They finally delivered it in some capacity. I don't even know in what capacity they delivered it in. in. And from my understanding, they waited that long because they were trying to get to kind of like as close to perfection as possible. But then they release their smart contracts and it doesn't really feel like anything special. And they're using like an old, outdated model and they feel very, very far behind with what they're doing there. They're not the only project. There's plenty of them out there. So I really do like the approach that a lot of these layer 2 teams are taking. And it's not just Arbitrum and Optimism. Starkware is taking the same approach by putting StarkNet to mainnet, but in alpha fashion. So in a very, very early kind of like mainnet release. But by putting it on mainnet, they attract developers, they attract users and get those early people doing kind of like using it and developing on it in order to improve it over time. There is literally no point trying to kind of like reach perfection in software development and kind of like not release anything for years on end. And then by the time you do release it, everyone else is just like, why would I use this thing now? Like these other things here, it already works. Like I'm not going to bother with it unless it's like a substantial improvement. Unless it's, you know, when it comes to getting people to use new things, it has to be a substantial improvement over the existing thing. So for example, the reason why a lot of people use these EVM sidechains is because they offer much cheaper fees, right? It's the same reason people are using layer 2s. They offer much cheaper fees than layer 1. That is a substantial improvement. And there's also the, of course, like the farming and the yield farming incentives and things like that. But a lot of the main draw for a lot of users is those cheaper fees, especially, you know, I mean, new users who don't want to spend $50 on a Uniswap trade. Definitely, they definitely want to use their scalability solutions. But just releasing kind of like smart contracts or releasing some kind of like a new way to do smart contracts with a new language, that's not a big enough kind of like change to convince developers and users to use your new thing. So I think this is what a lot of not software engineers, but in particular researchers get wrong, is that they always try to reach perfection because they're researchers. They love being able to kind of like get to the point where they're basically like, you know, this is the perfect design. This is amazing. This is going to change the world. This is going to be great. But imagine if Ethereum did that for ETH 2.0. Like I talked about yesterday how long it has taken ETH 2 to roll out, how long it took to get the proof of stake, how long it's taken to get to the merge, how long it's going to take to get to sharding. Can you imagine if Ethereum 1 never launched and we just waited? Could you imagine if Ethereum didn't launch in 2015 and we all just waited until everything was ready and proof of stake was ready and that was all live, and then we launched kind of like the smart contracts once the proof of stake network was done and once sharding was done? Ethereum wouldn't be anywhere in the conversations today. It would be just another one of those layer 1s that no one really talks about. They're ghost chains. And this is, I guess, like illustrating my example perfectly here, is the fact that Ethereum technology as it exists today, the EVM, proof of work, all that kind of stuff, it's actually really crappy technology from a technology standpoint, but it works. It works. It has network effects. It has tooling. It has developers building on it. It doesn't matter if it's crap. It works, and it's there for people to use. So again, like the perfection is the enemy of good. This should not be the goal for a lot of these teams, and I'm very, very happy that the layer 2 teams pretty much know this. They know this. They've taken it on board. They're not trying to get to perfection. They're releasing what they have and then adding upgrades to it over time. And these are substantial upgrades as well. Just quoting here, 20 to 50x increase in execution speed and a sizable decrease in costs. Even if it's something like a 30 to 40% decrease in costs, that's a massive improvement for this first iteration. And then they're going to keep, I guess that's the second technically, and then they're going to keep getting better and better. And Optimism is the same with their OVM 2.0. They're reducing costs as well, and they're going to keep reducing costs over time. So, and this hasn't stopped the adoption either. What's ended up happening is that, yes, the fees are still quite high on these rollups, like $3 or $4 to do a swap sometimes, depending on layer 1 fees. But people are using them, they're building on them, they're deploying to them. And in parallel, the Arbitrum and Optimism developers are making the platform better. It's exactly the same thing that happened with Ethereum, where we've made the platform better over time. We've put upgrades into it through Ethereum hard forks, and now we're at the kind of like cusp of getting the merge done and then getting sharding added in, which basically just enhances all of this sort of stuff. And if we had waited all those years to do that, and there wasn't any Ethereum 1 network, there wasn't any kind of like existing network for people to do things on, Ethereum would be so far behind every other kind of like network that had spun up. And there's a few projects out there that are like this. And I think this is what a lot of people miss, is that they don't understand network effects. They don't understand the fact that switching costs are really, really high for these sorts of things. Like, think about how high the switching cost is for someone to go from an iPhone to an Android phone. Like, I've tried it, and I've been an iPhone user for quite a while now. But the thing is, I was an Android user for a while too. And I think I got my first iPhone in like 2013 or something like that. And since then, I've been an iPhone user. And I tried going back to Android recently, I think a year ago. Within 2 days, I was back to iPhone again. Like, the switching costs are insane. Like, no matter how easy they make it for you to migrate, it's still, what you're used to, what you like using, is kind of what you're going to stick to. And Android isn't like 100 times better than the iPhone. Like, I mean, not even if you want more customization out of a phone or whatever, it's not 100 times better. It's not enough to force most people to switch. Some people will for whatever reason, but I mean, I think that's just one example of how the switching costs are really high. And same goes for like my operating system. I use Windows on my main PC. I have a MacBook because I like the MacBook's hardware better than any kind of like Windows laptops. But I don't actually like Mac OS that much. I love Windows, and there is literally no way I'd be able to switch to something else. Like, even Linux, like some skin on Linux, it'd be very hard for me to switch to, and it'd be basically impossible for most people to switch to because they like Windows, they're used to Windows, it's what they love using. Even if it can be, annoying sometimes and has its own quirks and things like that. Same goes for Ethereum. And whenever like people say to me, oh, once my favorite L1 has this, then it's a game over for Ethereum. It's like, are you guys serious? Like, I don't understand what goes through these people's heads. Like, it's a surefire way of identifying noobs, that's for sure, because I feel like newer people think this and they just don't understand the network effects around this, which is always odd to me because network effects is one of the kind of things that in technology is basically everything. Like, and is the reason why technologies succeed or fail. But I get it, and I'll keep preaching the fact that they're very important. But when it comes to kind of like layer 2s, and people say, oh, layer 2s are going to have trouble getting adoption just like these other chains are, I don't think that's true at all. And, it's not just liquidity mining that can get adoption really quickly for these sorts of things, but it's also the fact that the layer 2s have a community push behind them. Like, all the Ethereum community, which counts as part of the network effects, they're all pumping up the layer 2s and saying, these are going to be awesome. We should use these. Signal to developers, you build here and I'll use your app on here. That counts for a lot, I think, at the end of the day. And on top of that, they offer a better user experience too, like a much better user experience. You go from paying $50 fees to, even $5 fees. That is a massive improvement over $50, right? It's not a 100x improvement, but it's like a 10x improvement. And then once we keep getting better and better, those fees are going to come down even more. And eventually, to swap on like Uniswap on layer 2 is probably going to cost under a dollar at least, and under 50 cents, or even much cheaper than that, depending on how this evolves over time. That right there is a 100x improvement. But then eventually, there's going to be users that just never touch layer 1, never experience high fees anyway, and they're just going to experience these low fees on layer 2 and have a really great time there. So maybe a bit of a little rant there, but I really think that it's important for people to understand that network effect is what technology is all about. And Ethereum has network effect coming out of everywhere. Like, no matter where you look, whether it be on chain, whether it be the EVM itself, whether it be Solidity, whether it be developer tools, developers building on it, users. I mean, everyone uses Ethereum. Even the people that are using other chains maybe more heavily, they've still used Ethereum before. And the funny thing is that the most used chains are all EVM chains right now. They're all just side chains to Ethereum, which bodes very well for Arbitrum and Optimism, which the funny thing is Arbitrum and Optimism's fee revenue is higher than all the other L1s. The volumes are very high. The total value locked is very high. Arbitrum alone has almost $2 billion of TVL in there right now. Optimism is growing steadily over time. DYDX is has a lot of TVL, but also has like a lot of trading volumes, is rivaling centralized exchanges. So I don't know. People just like do not see what's coming. You guys do. You guys tuning into the refill every day hear me rant on about this all the time. But I think most people just have no idea what's coming with the layer 2 space and how, over the next year or two, how much improvement is coming to this space as well, and how much scalability we're going to get. Absolutely amazing. But anyway, I'm going to stop the little rant there and just move on to some of the other layer 2 updates. So, to no one's surprise, or at least not to my surprise, Starkware announced that they have a strategic partnership with Nethermind. Now, you guys will remember me talking about Nethermind, how they've built a bunch of tools for Starkware. like the Voyager Block Explorer and the Solidity to Cairo transpiler called Warp. This is just kind of like, I guess, officiating the strategic partnership here, which is awesome. I mean, Nethermind have an Ethereum 1 client that they've built, a kind of like core client. I'm sure some of you are running that, but it's great to see them kind of like officially teaming up with Starkware to build more kind of like Ethereum tooling, more layer 2 tooling for Starkware. I mean, just that transpiler, the Solidity to Cairo transpiler for developers is really cool, because when StarkNet goes live on mainnet, there's going to be a lot of developers that want to get onto StarkNet, right? And to do so, they have to have their code in Cairo. That it can't be in Solidity. So if they don't want to have to rewrite their contracts in Cairo, they basically just use this transpiler. It's not, as far as I understand, it's not like a one-to-one thing, and it's not 100%. It's not like they can just take their code, run it through this transpiler, and everything will run perfectly. There's going to be a bit of, tweaks and changes need to be done. The tooling will probably need to be replaced, but it's much easier than rewriting your contracts. So this is incredibly important. And obviously, block explorers are important too, but I'm expecting Etherscan to come out with a Starkware or StarkNet block explorer very soon anyway, especially if StarkNet's going live in November. I would expect it to come at the same time or before. So really cool to see that partnership kind of like officiated here. And speaking of Starkware, John's on Twitter tagged me in this post today. He found that Argent's contracts on StarkNet has appeared in Argent's GitHub, and you can see this on it's a mirror post here where he's kind of like posted about this. So basically, Argent is already working on StarkNet integration, which makes sense considering that it's going live on mainnet next month. So Argent wants to be ready for it. I'm not sure when Argent's going to come out with their ZK Sync implementation. I'm going to assume it's going to be this month, to be honest. I mean, there's still, 18 days left of this month. Maybe it's next month, but it's very soon. They've been teasing it for quite a while here. All right, so Patrick McCorry put out a really great tweet, I guess like earlier today, where he said, "It's fun to say that rollups are competing with monolithic blockchains like EOS, Solana, Cardano, etc., but the real prize is that rollups will compete with custodial exchanges like Coinbase, Kraken, Bitstamp, FTX, etc." The thing is, I actually think that they're competing with everything. I actually think that rollups are going to eat everything, especially ZK rollups. The technology is just too good. Like, as Polynya has been going on about, and I've got Polynya's tweet coming up here, but as they've been going on about, it's just such a huge shift and such a huge kind of like scalability boost that we're not only going to be able to obsolete these other layer ones in terms of scalability, but we're also going to be able to challenge, and maybe not obsolete, but like challenge and overtake these kind of like custodial solutions or exchanges or service providers like these exchanges that are listed here. As I mentioned before, DYDX is already doing more trading volume than some of these centralized exchanges, and they're just one app. One exchange, one perpetuals exchange, and there's just so much more kind of like coming here for rollups that the kind of like next 5 years, as I said before, is the modular blockchain era. And at the heart of that, at the very heart of that, is rollups. Like, without layer 2 scaling in general, without rollups, you don't really get a modular blockchain design. You're missing a key piece of that, because with modular blockchains, you have consensus, kind of like execution and data availability. It's all well and good if you have consensus and data availability, but if you don't, and security goes in hand with consensus, but if you don't have an execution layer, being rollups or kind of like or something else, I mean, you can do it at layer 1, but inherently you get less scalability at layer 1. But if you don't have an execution layer off chain, you don't have a modular blockchain. So rollups are obviously a key piece there and what bring it all together. Because it's funny, you can have data availability or data stored off-chain. You don't have to have it on-chain and still have kind of like modular design. And you can have consensus and security actually done off-chain as well, funny enough. This is what some of the data availability blockchains are doing. But you can't have a modular blockchain without rollups. I just don't, and kind of like without, an off-chain execution engine. It doesn't have to be a rollup, can be a Validium or a Volition, but you can't have that kind of design without an off-chain execution engine. So yeah, I mean, and on that note, I guess like rollups, even Validiums and Volitions, they're just going to eat everything. And I was actually talking to a friend today about this, and when you really think about it, the reason why rollups can do this is because they're off-chain. They're not, and because they're outsourcing their security and their kind of like consensus to Ethereum layer 1. Because they're basically saying that I'm going to take this massive load off my shoulder, which is consensus and security and data availability. It's going to take these massive loads off my shoulder. I'm not going to worry about that. Ethereum can worry about that, and I'll pay Ethereum to worry about that. I'll worry about just doing execution and making the best execution layer possible. This is similar to, say, like a club owner, and they're just like, well, I don't want to have to worry about security, so I'm going to hire security guards, going to obviously pay them, and then the security guards can worry about it, and I can get on with doing all the other stuff. Like if they're a club manager, they may, organize the kind of, I guess, like the nights, organize the DJs, organize the kind of like the alcohol, all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of like just this division of labor, so that each kind of like I guess entity or stakeholder within the system can do what they're good at, and that's exactly what's happening with the modular blockchain design, where you have the security being outsourced, data availability also being outsourced, or you can keep it in-house if you want to have an off-chain construction. And then of course you Rollups just focus on execution, which is why they can offer such cheap transactions. They can keep kind of like making it more efficient, making it more effective over time. So it's just really a beautiful design at the end of the day. And I'm sure you've all heard a lot about this, not just from me recently, but Bankless is starting to talk a lot about it. Polynya keeps publishing a lot of stuff. Bankless actually did an episode, I think it was yesterday. Ryan and David went through this kind of thing, like the whole monolithic versus modular blockchain stuff. The funny thing is, you may get put off by the title. It's Ethereum or something like, this is why Ethereum will go a million X, and they're actually talking about Ethereum scalability, not ETH going a million X. I mean, I wish ETH would go a million X, but it's not happening, guys. Like, let's be realistic here. That would mean that the US dollar has kind of like failed. But anyway, in that episode, they go through kind of like the whole monolithic versus modular. So I actually recommend going and listening to that, because they run through the whole thing in a structured way. Whereas I know on the refuel can sometimes be kind of like out of sync, and the structure can be a bit all over the place, because I'm just going through things as they happen. So definitely go check that one out there. And it wouldn't be a refuel without highlighting one of Polynya's threads again. Today's one is about basically how the kind of like current networks, and what I was saying before, how like the current Arbitrum Optimism and like ZK networks and stuff like that are all just like the first iterations, early MVPs with many missing features and optimizations. And in this thread, Polynya basically goes through what kind of improvements are coming, obviously like Nitro and OVM 2.0, and then, StarkNet, they're going to go into alpha, but as they progress through, they're going to get better and better. So yeah, I mean, this thread just kind of like reiterates what I was saying before, but in probably much less words than I was kind of rambling about before. So definitely go read this if you want a TLDR of that. But yeah, just another great thread from Polynya there. So Brantley from the ENS team put out this tweet, which is funny because he said, breaking, Metamask supports ENS websites. The D-Web is here. Decentralized web is here. If you have the Metamask extension in your browser, you can type in a .eth name, and if it has a decentralized website, it'll load. You must put kind of / at the end. Try it now by entering vitalik.eth / and watch the magic. Now, the funny thing is, when I saw this, I did a double take. I'm like, breaking, like this has been a feature for, I think, years at this point. How is this breaking? And then the next tweet, Brantley's like, well, no, this has been true for years. Also, Brave and Opera natively support it, and the eth.link and eth.limo gateways. Lots of ways to access the D-Web. So yeah, for those of you who didn't know, if there is a kind of like a website tied to it, like there is at vitalik.eth / you'll be able to kind of like visit that if you have MetaMask installed, which is just a really cool feature of ENS again. I think ENS is one of the most slept on things within the Ethereum ecosystem. I know I talk about it a lot, and I've talked about signing with Ethereum a lot, but it just seems to be something that a lot of people really underestimate, even though it is going to change so much going forward. It is going to be a key piece of mass adoption going forward. And the ENS team just, is probably one of the best and most kind of like aligned with Ethereum that I've come across in terms of supporting Ethereum's mission and ethos and keeping things decentralized. The ENS team, they haven't got a token or anything like that either. They don't want to do a token or issue a token. Maybe they will in the future. I'm not saying that they won't, but like they seem to be kind of like, maybe not against that, but they seem to just not see the need for it, which is fair enough. But maybe if they want to decentralize the governance of ENS, they may do a token. I'm not sure. I'm sure they've talked about it before as a team, but you can never tell here. But the golden rule, my friends, my Daily Gwei friends, Daily Gwei Refuel listeners, is that everything will have a token except the Daily Gwei. So maybe, I'm sure some of you already have an ENS name. I do. And if they ever did a token, maybe they would airdrop it all to .eth people. But yeah, no promises there. It's still cool to see all these features, of course. Just give it a try for yourself. Maybe right now or after you finish listening to the refuel. All right, last couple of updates to get through. So Pods Finance has been live on Polygon for quite a while now, the Polygon POS chain. But today they announced that they're on the Ethereum mainnet now. So you can go to app.pods.finance and to play around with it. Pods is an options protocol, so similar to other options protocols that you may have been seeing out there lately, like Lyra and Dopex. And there's a lot of them, like Premier. There's a few of these options protocols now actually out there. But yeah, great to see Pods kind of like go live on the Ethereum mainnet in addition to, I guess, the Polygon POS chain that they've been live on for a while now. As Swagnimus Prime says here, when Arbitrum Optimism and StarkNet, I'm sure that's coming. The great thing about everything being compatible is that these devs can basically just like deploy their stuff to these other networks without having to change much, which makes their lives much, much easier. And I think we're going to see, just pretty much every app go quote-unquote multi-chain, and it won't just be like these EVM side chains. It'll be a lot of these layer 2s as well, which is really, really encouraging. All right, final thing to talk about is KlimaDAO, which is a project that I'm actually really, really excited about. So disclosure here, I don't hold any of these tokens, but I actually plan to buy them once they go live next week. So KlimaDAO is launching on the Polygon mainnet next Monday, the 18th of October at 8 p.m. UTC. So you can check out the announcement post for full details. But essentially what KlimaDAO is, they call themselves an algorithmic carbon-backed currency. They're trying to fight climate change by using the Olympus DAO style model. So, or Olympus Finance, Olympus DAO, the OM model. If you've seen how OM works before, maybe you don't need me to explain it to you. But the TLDR is that basically it's kind of like a rebasing coin where it rebases over time, and it kind of like collects value into its treasury and does protocol controlled value, where there's basically, I think there's like $600 million in the Olympus DAO treasury. The Olympus DAO treasury that kind of like backstops the whole system. And then people can like stake their tokens. And then every time it rebases, you obviously, if you're staking, you get the portion of the rebase, and then it kind of like goes up over time. A lot of people have accused Olympus DAO of being a Ponzi. I don't know, like it's funny because in crypto, the line between Ponzi and legit project is so blurry because of all these token kind of like schemes that go on in these tokenomic designs. I don't have an opinion on that, to be honest. I do hold some OM tokens, just as a disclaimer there, but I think that what KlimaDAO wants to do is they want to kind of harvest this speculative degeneracy, for lack of a better term, and use it for something good. And that something good is basically fighting climate change. So, I mean, I'm not going to go through the details of how it all works. You can definitely just visit their Medium page for kind of like what they're trying to do here. But essentially, from my understanding, they're going to use the money to buy carbon credits and back the whole thing with carbon credits, which is basically a way to offset kind of like carbon emissions, which I think is just really cool. Like as an Ethereum, I actually am on the kind of like side of caring deeply about the environment and wanting to do something to fight climate change. It's one of the major reasons why I'm so excited about the merge, getting off proof of work. I don't care what proof of work proponents say about it, encouraging clean energy or being good for the environment. I actually don't buy into those arguments at all. To be honest, like from all this research that I've seen, I'm not convinced at all by it. And, that's a debate that is probably going to be going on for a very, very long time, but that's just my personal view on it. So anything that can help fight climate change is amazing in my books, and I would really, really love to get involved with. That's exactly why I'm going to be getting involved with Klima here. It's, obviously kind of like there's a chance to make money from this as well. I'm not kind of like hiding that. I'm sure pretty much most people buying this are doing it because they want to make money from it, but that's the whole point. The whole point is just to harvest that speculative kind of like fervor around something and use it for good, which is exactly what platforms like Gitcoin do as well, right? And other kind of like public goods stuff, like when the core researchers and core developers sell NFTs, like when Trent Van Epp sold the Beacon Book NFT and a bunch of NFTs around that, and the EIP 1559 NFT, that was all kind of just harvesting people's need or want to buy NFTs, to speculate on them, and then donate the proceeds to core developers and researchers. So we're already doing this, and there's been many, many attempts and many, many other ways of doing this where DAOs donate to Gitcoin and stuff like that. And I love just seeing more of this happen, and I want to see more of it happen in kind of like the off-chain world, not just within the Ethereum kind of like ecosystem, but also doing stuff like fighting climate change, maybe helping people out of poverty, donating to different charities, because there's so much money sloshing around in this ecosystem, so much speculative money, that so much degenerate money too, that if we can harvest this for good, it offsets the kind of like bad that comes with it. It offsets the scams, it offsets all the rug pulls to an extent. It doesn't totally offset them because there's a lot of scams and rug pulls, but it definitely helps and kind of like restores balance a little bit there. So that's why I'm excited about projects like this. So definitely go check it out, learn more about it. Again, disclaimer, I plan to buy Klima and I own some OM tokens as well, but because I like the model, I like how it all works, and of course I like making money too, so I'm not going to hide that, right? I didn't just buy this thinking, oh yes, I'm going to buy this knowing that I'm going to lose money on it, so I'll be fine if that happens. No, obviously, like I invested in this for financial gain as much as I have for social gain, and I think that's totally fine. At the end of the day, you shouldn't feel bad for doing something for financial gain, even if it's sorry, you shouldn't be bad for doing something that will give you social gain, but like you think is going to give you financial gain as well. They can work both hand in hand, and they can work very nicely too. Like it doesn't have to be pure degeneracy. It can be, you can take the kind of like speculation with the funding of public goods or doing something good with the money. So yeah, I think that's really, really important to consider as well. But anyway, I think I'm going to end it there for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.